Hello, this is Mona Ellis. I am a substance abuse professional, SAP provider. I provide services to safety sensitive workers in Utah, Arizona, and in Texas. So I come to you today. I've been getting a lot of questions and responses as it relates to completing step 6 in the clearinghouse from a lot of drivers. And so I just wanted to give some time. I do have some Q&A, some questions and answers and stuff that's posted up there whenever this is live, but I know that it's going to also play after the live session. And so I just wanted to share step 6 and my experiences with safety sensitive workers, which are CDL drivers, truck drivers that are in the clearinghouse. I have had drivers that has been on a follow-up testing plan schedule that has not been completed based on the time that I have specified in the follow-up test. So they have worked for employers, carriers that have not entered step 6 in the clearinghouse. This is so frustrating to me. I mean, like really frustrating because they're not responsible for sending themselves to complete step 6. They don't even know when they're supposed to be tested based on their follow-up testing plan schedule. And so this is one of the biggest issues that I have experienced since 2019. So what will you do when your step 6 is not done? I'm going to give you some information. Many SAPs, if they have moved on, meaning that they've sent you back to work, you're working, your case is probably going to be inactive in their records. If they decide, they may charge an administrative fee to go back in there and help you to resolve this issue. So, first of all, don't get upset at your SAP because we have to work and that's time. And of course, time is money. Now, second of all, what I normally do as a SAP is I normally put that responsibility as far as paying for the administrative fee. Most of the time, I try to get the prospective employer to pay that fee. It's hard sometimes because they don't want to, but they they're responsible for reaching out to the former employer to get all of the follow-up tests that you have completed. All right? And this is the problem. So your other employer may have been sending you for follow-up tests, but you haven't done them all. They're not going to update the clearinghouse step 6 until you completed all of the follow-up tests within the specified period of time that the SAP has provided. They don't put each test that you do in the clearinghouse. So as a result, your follow-up tests and your SAP paperwork and your return to duty drug test, it has to be included in your new hire paperwork at the new company, meaning that they have a responsibility to interview your prior employer. They have to do an employer interview. And in doing so, they have to get information about your work, any type of safety risks, any type of anything, just like a normal employer would do when they do a reference check. And in doing so, they have to ask questions about if you have participated in the SAP program and how many follow-up tests you've completed, how many you have left to go. And they need to pick up that schedule. So that means that when you come to the new employer, the former employer is going to give them all of that paperwork, everything in the SAP program, your assessments. I mean, not your assessments, your initial SAP letter, your follow-up SAP letter. They're going to give them your return to duty drug test and any follow-up test that you have completed. And they're going to complete the interview, the former employer interview. All that paperwork has to be on file with the safety department or the human resource department. Many small companies I'm not sure. They may have a consortium or a third party administrator that's handling that for them. They need to have that on file, um, in your employee record. And so this is where the problem is. And this is why your step 6 is not being entered in the system. Because when you go work for the new employer, they're missing that point. They're missing the fact that they need to be doing that. Okay. Um, they can also reach out to the SAP to get all of your SAP credentials, verification that they are an actual SAP, and paperwork. I have them call me all the time, and I email the information over to the companies that ask for my SAP credentials. Okay. All of that needs to be taking place before you're even hired. So I'm hearing people that are hired and have been working for companies for 2 years, and all of a sudden they get a letter from their local Department of Public Safety office saying, okay, we're going to downgrade your license because you have not completed the return to duty program. All right. And now they're in a frantic. They're going to reach out to the SAP. That's the first person they're going to reach out to, because SAPs are supposed to do everything. Not literally, but that's the way most people think. The SAP is doing everything. And we're only doing step 2, 3, and 4. The employers are responsible for step 5, which is sending you for your return to duty drug test. Or if you decide to go find a third party administrator to be able to do the return to duty drug test and enter it in the clearinghouse, that can be done effective May of 2024. After that, the employer is responsible for doing the follow-up test. They're not going to enter each one that you do in the system. A follow-up test is not the same thing as a random test. A follow-up test is different from a random test. So you could go for a follow-up test one day and a random test the next day. The only thing that the SAP is requiring is that you do the follow-up test based on the follow-up testing plan schedule that has been required. That has to be done. If it's not, then the employer is non-compliant with the DOT federal legislative laws and the DOT policy for drug and alcohol. All right. So that's very important that you remember the employer is responsible for this. Okay. If you have a new employer, they're only responsible for making sure that they get all of the information that they need. What happens if they can't get the information from the employer? What happens if if the company has gone out of business and they don't have any way of contacting those people? Well, they have to start your follow-up testing plan schedule all over again. And that's pretty frustrating for drivers because it's not their fault. They have nothing to do with that. However, they have the to carry that load of it not being done and not being able to get other jobs that they want because they're supposed to be finished with the follow-up testing plan schedule. But based on DOT policy, the new employer has to begin that follow-up testing schedule or resume that follow-up testing plan schedule. And I have a lot of employers, the new employers that do reach out to me. I'm going to charge an administrative fee if they come to Miss Mona. I'm sorry, because I get about 5 or 10 of those a week, and that's a lot of time. And so I'm going to charge an administrative fee, and I'm going to process that paperwork. Once I explain it to the new employers, they're very open and understanding, and they will actually pay the $50 because you will have to sign a consent form saying, yes, you can release the information to this employer. This is my new employer. Yes, I want all my SAP paperwork to go to them. It has to be in writing. You have to provide a written consent, okay, to do that. And it can't go to anybody at the company. It has to go to either the DER, which we call the designated employer representative, based on DOT's federal legislative laws. We can't just send your information, just put the company name on there, and we just send it to anybody. We can't do that. It has to be somebody that's designated to handle that SAP program, that SAP paperwork. Usually they have a safety department, or if it's a really small company, they have a human resource department. And we normally can get with them and make sure they get all of your paperwork. But just know that it's going to be a fee because it's work for the SAP. Um, and but it can get done. You can get through step 6 not being completed after years of thinking it's done, and now all of a sudden it hits you. Oh, you haven't done step 6. We're going to take your license. So all you have to do basically is get with your new employer. They will begin to resume the follow-up testing plan schedule. Let them know who you're currently employed with and talk to the DPS office about the fact that you are actually in compliance and you are working with your new employer to get that issue resolved so that they can reinstate your license. For many people, they just haven't finished the SAP program and they haven't done anything like the return to duty test or anything. If it's been a little while, they're going to downgrade. They are required by law, effective in November 2024, to downgrade licenses. So all the states are doing it. And so I did this video to make sure that you understand the importance of you getting step 6 done, the importance of you as a professional driver taking your follow-up test. If you have not been for a follow-up test, and you know that because when you get sent for a drug test, they're going to put on the custody and control form, which is the DOT federal form, they're going to put on there the type of test that you're taking. If it's a return to duty test, if it's a random test, if it's a follow-up test, if it's a reasonable suspicion test, if it's a post-accident test, they're going to put that on there. So keep your paperwork. Always keep your follow-up. Anytime you go to take a drug test, keep that paperwork with you. Get you a folder, get you a file, and put it in there because that's the evidence that you're going to have if you get that phone call or if you get that letter in the mail. You'll have documentation saying, yes, I have been compliant. I have been doing my follow-up test. Here's my custody and control form. This is how many I've done. And then it's on the employer, but you're able to show that you're in compliance. Many people, when they call me, I say, do you have any of the forms where you went to go take your follow-up test? No, I don't know where it's at. It's gone. It's in my truck somewhere. I got to go dig and find it. I don't have it. I can't find it. That is your lifeline to keeping your CDL license. Anytime you go and take a DOT drug test, okay, you may not have the results, but you have the custody and control form. Any SAP, if you want to do consultation services, you will have to pay a SAP. You can't just call us on the phone and say, hey, I need you to help me. Oh, that's time, and time is money. You can pay for a consultation services. I don't know about other SAPs, but I charge $50 for a consult. You can get about 45 minutes. And I will say, okay, where's your custody and control form? What is your, there's a number on that form that we need to contact the DER, which is a designated, the MRO, which is the medical review officer. We can contact that medical review officer and we can get your drug test to find out what your results are. We can get a copy of that, okay, to find out and help you to resolve that issue. But of course, we're not going to do it for free. But we can say, okay, he took the test on this date. What's the results of his follow-up test? What's going on? We can also gather those tests, and then you can have that information as proof to be able to give to the DPS office to show that you are taking the test and the tests are negative. So there's a lot of ways you can resolve the issue that you have in step 6 with DPS. If you're in the system and you're on step 5, I know we're working on step 6. If you haven't done step 5, right? Because some employers will do the test, send you to work, but never enter it in the clearinghouse. Never do the follow-up test. Never do anything. They just want you out there on the road driving. Make sure your business is taken care of. Make sure your nose is clean. When you go out there and you get in that truck, you want to make sure everything is going smooth as far as the paperwork, as far as you in the truck following the laws and the regulations. You want to hold that employer responsible. Say, okay, I don't know when I need to do a follow-up test. I just know I haven't done a follow-up test, and it's been 4 months. 4 months. If they haven't sent you for a follow-up test in 4 months, it's a problem. I'm just going to tell you like that as a SAP, because we're requiring that you be tested so many times in a year. Okay. And so your test can range from 12 months minimum, 5 years maximum. Another question that I get is, how long will my violation stay in the clearinghouse? The violation is going to stay in the clearinghouse until you do one or two things. Okay. It's 5 years past the violation. Okay. Then it may be gone based on DOT. 5 years or until you complete the follow-up testing plan schedule. If you ain't done your DOT requirements in 5 years, you probably won't even have a CDL license. I'm just going to tell you that. You won't be able to drive anywhere. But until you complete the follow-up testing plan schedule, okay, that's another issue, because that is on your employer. You just need to be making sure that you're doing your follow-up testing plan. But once that employer completes the follow-up testing plan schedule, they're not going to, like I said, they're not going to enter each date and time in the system. Okay. When you complete the last follow-up test within the time frame that the SAP recommends, that last one, the negative result has to be entered in the clearinghouse within 3 days of your last test, or the employer can be fined a lot of dough, a lot of money. SAPs can be fined, employers can be fined if we don't enter information in the clearinghouse like we're supposed to. I've heard those fines can range all the way up to $2,000 or more. That's a lot of dough. I don't have that kind of money. Oh no. So I try my best to enter all the information in the system when I'm supposed to. But anyways, the employer has up to 3 days of that negative test to enter that result in the clearinghouse. One thing you need to remember, medical review officers will enter positive tests. Employers will enter if they have knowledge, okay, that you've been using drugs or alcohol. You come and you self-report and say, why didn't you go to work yesterday? Because I was drunk, I couldn't make it in, blah, blah, blah. So they have knowledge. They'll enter that in the system, okay? Or if you tell your friend at work, man, I'm so high today, I don't know how I'm going to be able to make it through the day. And they go and report that to the supervisor. That's knowledge, okay? That's actual knowledge. They're going to enter that in the clearinghouse, okay? They can do that. Now, if you are taking your follow-up test, you're doing what you're supposed to do, then that's on the employer, okay? You will not know when you will be tested, how long you'll be tested. Always remember that. No one is going to give you that follow-up testing plan schedule because it's prohibited by law. The employer can't give it to you. The MRO can't give it to you. The SAP can't give it to you. No one can give you a follow-up testing plan schedule, okay? But I need you to understand, and I need you to know that you must be completing follow-up tests. And when you go and you take a drug test, always look at the custody and control form to see what type of test that you're taking. Again, always complete the test. Stay at the testing site. Give them a specimen. If not, if you walk out of that site for any reason, I don't care what it's for, phone call, whatever it's for, and you plan on coming back, you're going to get hit with a refusal to test on a follow-up test. Okay? So stay at the testing site. Continue to take your follow-up test. Make sure you know what type of test you're taking. Random tests, follow-up tests. They're not the same. Okay? If you have not taken a follow-up test and it's been some time, 6 months, 7, 8, 9 months, there is a problem. Okay? You can say that the employer is non-compliant. You can contact someone in the safety department to see if there's some type of issue, because they have to put you in the random pool. They have to assign you to the consortium. The consortium for most companies will be responsible for making sure that you're getting those follow-up tests. So that way you'll know everybody's doing their job. Most big companies have consortiums and third-party administrators to handle that for them. They don't normally do that. And I work with many of them. So that's how I know. I work with a lot of them because I have to send over paperwork to them, my credentials and stuff like that. And so most of the big companies, they have, you guys already know a lot of them. So they have a lot of the big companies. I think it's Concentra and all those different people. They do follow-up tests. They do the DOT exams. So they have all of that going on, and they normally handle that for the employers. Well, that's the end of it. I'm done with this. I'm hoping that it's helpful. If there's anything that you have in mind that you want to hear or talk about, I can do some research and I can help you with that. I brought this video for the person who I talked to about 2 days ago, and we talked about the follow-up test, and he said nobody talks about step 6. Everybody talks about everything else, but nobody talks about step 6. And I'm hoping that based on what I know and what I understand, that this video has been very helpful to you. Okay. And I'll see you guys again. Always say, keep your nose clean, stay sober, stay clean, and don't be afraid to reach out to a SAP for consultation. What's $50 for 45 minutes to help you resolve a problem that's been going on for a year or two? All right. That's my tip of the day. Talk to y'all later, and be safe on the road.